Hey everyone, in this one, as I promised, is a bonus to part 5, which is to see what else we can do with this navigator. So this is a test one that I've already built, and it looks very similar to what we had in the end of the last video, but I've put this little icon here, and then when you click it we get a smaller version of the navbar. Okay, and you can see that we've got some animations as well when we change. So yeah, so it just gives you a small version of that navigation bar, so it just gives you more space to work over here, and the user can decide whether they have that small or extended or whatever. So what we've got to do then is to add this, obviously, to put a workflow so that this extends or shrinks accordingly. If you look, when we do shrink, all of the captions go away, so we need to deal with that. And also, if you look, the button actually changes, so it's just a small new button, and obviously the logo changes, so we just get a smaller version of the logo and a smaller version of the button as well. Okay, this is on the test page, it's not in the main app page. I'm going to do that on the app page now, so follow along if you want to do this. If not, just move on to video 6. Right, so if you look on here, the first thing I've done is to add this control that you click to shrink or extend the navbar. So we need to do that. What I've done as well is I've increased the height of the repeating group here, so that's set to 400. So let's go and do that in here. No, I need the repeating group 400. Okay, and I need that little icon under the repeating group, so we'll drag an iconify onto there. Okay, it's popped it into the placeholder, so we need to drag it up to underneath the repeating group. Okay, that's done that nicely, has it? No, it needs to be at the same level as the repeating group, so there we go, that's better. Okay, so that's there. The size is, if we look on here, is 2020, so I've called it IC nav resize. Let's do that. Okay, now we're just going to make that 20 by 20. Okay, let's see, we've obviously got some kind of margin on there. Yeah, we've got a left margin of 8, so okay, and we just need the actual icons that occur. Now obviously, depending on whether it's extended or not, we get a different icon. So it's pointing left to say shrink it, and it's pointing right to say extend it. So obviously we need to do that. So let's have a look at the icon names that we're using here. So we've got our icon set left to 1, so that's the standard one, and it's being displayed in the same colour, the grey colour of the unselected navigation options. So let's have a look at that. Okay, and again, let's just copy the colour. Okay, let's take our transition off it as we did last time, and okay, so that'll display the left arrow. So that's it in its current state. So the thing is, the way this is going to work when you actually shrink it or extend it is it's going to work using Bubbles reactivity, is based on a custom state. In other words, is it extended or is it not extended? And so if you look on the test one that we did, or that I did, we've got there nav extended, which is a yes no, and by default is yes. Okay, so let's have a look at that. Okay, so let's create a new custom state, and we will call that nav extended, yes or no. Okay, set its default value to yes. Now what we could do with that is actually say, whenever they shrink or extend the navigation bar, is to save that back to the user record, and then base this around whether the user's setting is extended, and that way it's going to save it for the next time that the user comes in. So if they prefer a shrunk navigation bar, that's what loads up every time. And we'll go back and do that in a little while, but let's focus on getting this right at the minute. So then, obviously the size of the navigation bar has to change whenever that changes. So we then need a condition on the navigation bar that will deal with that for us. Let's just go and have a look at that. So if we have a look at what we did on the other one, on a navigation bar, we've got a condition that says when the nav extended custom state is no, we shrink the width to 62. And as we've already covered, the real thing that's holding the place, the actual position in place, is the underlying placeholder group. So that's got to shrink as well. So we can see we've done that there. So we need to do the same thing here. So on our floating group, we need to add a condition, define another condition. Let's grab hold of the page to get the custom state. And if we say, is it no? If it's no, then the width has to go to 62. Okay, and then we'll copy that condition, and on our placeholder group we can then just paste that in, and we've got the same thing. So all that we need to do then to make that work is to put a little bit of a workflow behind this icon, so that when they click it, it will toggle in the same way as we toggled this up here earlier on to close the navigation bar altogether. We just do exactly the same thing with the toggle on this. So we will grab our resize icon, and we'll need to make it clickable. Okay, and in our workflow, okay, we need to say an iconify is clicked. Which one? That's going to be nav resize, and we can put a custom event if we want. Remember, we covered that we'd usually do custom events. This is the only thing that's going to be clickable, so I'm going to follow my own convention. I don't want to sort of say how to do something and then completely go against the grain. So we will just say toggle extended nav. Okay, and let's put that in custom, so that on our resize we're just going to add an action to trigger that. Okay, toggle extended nav. Okay, and in our toggle extended nav, we're just going to have an action that sets a state of that custom state we created. Nav extended, and all that's going to do is to evaluate itself and just say is no. So if the current value of this is no, then it will evaluate to a yes. If it was yes, it will evaluate to a no, so it toggles it. Okay, so then that's going to toggle that. Now, because our conditional on our navigation bar is set around that, then that will do it for us. Now, at the moment, don't forget, nothing else will change, just the size of it. So it's not going to look right, but we'll deal with that in a minute. So let's just, we're on the wrong, I'd say we'll just close that, and we will run it on the app page. Move that along there, take the debug off it. Okay, and so we should be able to click this, and yeah, you can see that it toggles the shrink. Now, obviously we haven't done anything else, so it doesn't look right, but there you go. So let's crack on with doing the rest of it. So let's deal with it top to bottom here. So let's deal with the logo at the top. So what we're going to need to do really to get this right is that we're going to need another image. Okay, so we're going to need the image which is standard here. Okay, which is our Showbooks main logo, and the smaller one that just contains our little thing there. So we are going to need a different image, and then all we need to do to load that in is to have a conditional, and we can define a condition. So on this condition, if you have a look in the other one, what we've done there is to actually test the width of the floating group bar rather than just test that. So that just gives a bit more flexibility if we need to change things in the future. So we'll base it on that one. So all we need to do there is to say fg main nav width is less than 200, because the extended width, the standard width is 200, then what we can do then is we need to change the width. The height of the logo is okay, but the actual width of it needs to be 32. So the height's 32, so the width needs to be 32, because we're going to need to put a new image in. We can't just have that image and try and shrink it and sort of cut it off. We need a new image. So what we do is image source, and I'll just go and upload an image. Right, so we've got an image in there now. So that's going to work quite nicely. I'm not going to put the transitions in and the nice animations just yet. Let's just get the whole thing working first. So what we can do then is I can just copy this condition, copy the expression, and we can do the same thing on our button. On the other one, the way that it works is it sort of shrinks in and it becomes, we just get like a rounded image, and we get the new out. Okay, there's no new, it's just a plus. And we need to define a condition. We'll paste that previous condition that we had, which is testing for the floating group's width. And then what we can do then is the rounding on the button is okay. So let's have a look at what we did in setting here on the button. Okay, so you can see that we've got, and this button is hovered, let's say. So we need to be looking at this one here first and foremost, which is, and this button isn't hovered. And then we're changing the text, changing the button roundness, we're changing the border width to 2, and the font size, because we need it to be bigger just to show that plus symbol, and the height and the width is 28. So let's do that then. So what we need to do there is to say, and this button isn't hovered, because obviously what we want to do is to say if the width is less than 200 and the button is hovered, because that will differ from the standard condition that's now on the style, which is if the button is like this but it's hovered. So we're doing something different. So the height and the width, I think we said, was 28. Make sure I don't make the mistake and put that in there. So let's make it, we did say 28. So the font size needs to be 18, and that's just to increase the size of the plus, because we're not displaying anything but the plus. So the font size needs to go to 18, and we need to change the text on it so it is just the actual plus sign. I think it's a plus sign and a space. Okay, what else did we set? The border roundness I think is already 20 by default, if I'm not mistaken. I need to have a look at the style for that. Yeah, it's already 20, so I don't think we need to change that. We'll see anyway. What else have we got? The border width, where are we? Oh, I'm looking at the wrong condition, sorry. The border roundness is 20, border width, set there. Yeah, okay, so the border width, all borders is 2. Okay, we'll set that. So the border width, is 2. Okay, so this is when it isn't hovered, so when we shrink the navigator down, that's what should change. Let's give that a go. Okay. Yeah, so we're now getting a much nicer button. Obviously we need to define what happens when you do hover it. There we go, so we've got our nice logo, we've got our nice button there. We need to deal with this obviously, but let's just do the when you hover that as well, that button as well, while we're here. Okay, so let's have a look at that one. So I don't just want to copy this, I do want to implement and explain why we're doing this. So if it's width and it is hovered, so what we'll do is we will copy that expression, create a new condition, and we'll paste that in, and this button is hovered. Okay, and if we're doing this from scratch rather than just looking at what we did with the other one, what would we need to do when it's hovered? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make the background white actually, and I'm going to make the font colour transparent. So let's just make that, see if we can do this without referring to the other one. So we want the background style we'll need to make into a flat colour. Okay, and the background colour needs to be white. The border width doesn't really need to be anything. Let me check what I've done with the other one. Yeah, that's right. We still need to change the text, because don't forget this is separate condition to what's going to happen here. So that's okay. Right, the font colour has to be this, because we're changing it to a, when we hover it, we're turning white background with that colour on the front. We need to change all of this. So we need to do the same thing as what we did before on the other one. So we will, let's change the font colour. Okay, and then the height 28, the width 28, and we need to change the text itself to be just be the plus sign. Okay, and we need, I do believe we need to change something to do with the font size. Yeah, okay, the font size. What I'll do actually, I'll move this condition up above the other one so that while we're working on it. So the font size is going to be 18. By the way, notice I've left that as a percentage, common mistake. Font size is 18. Right, so we've now got the conditions that when it's, the width of the floating group is less than 200 and the button is hovered, that's what it's going to look like. If its width is less than 200, it's not hovered, that's what it's going to look like. So let's see if we can, if this looks like our original. Okay, that looks good, all good, yeah. So we can organise the transitions of when that happens in a little while. So finally, the last thing we need to do is to make sure that our captions are not being shown on here. Okay, and also we don't want any scroll bars or anything like that on there as well. So we might need to change the width of the floating group, or the width of the actual group that sits in the floating group. So, and we need to change obviously this for when it's shrunk. So yeah, so if we're saying RG main nav's width is less, all we're doing is setting that invisible. So let's give that a go. So if we just, where are we on here? Okay, so let's just say that, now we need a new condition obviously. So we're just going to say that the floating group's width is less than 200, and then we can just say this element is visible, no. Okay, let's see if that actually works for us. Where am I going? There we go. It's working for us, except we've actually got the scroll bars on there. I think the reason for the scroll bar still appearing is that it's not the height of it, I think it's the width that's causing the scroll bar. Or it could be the height. I'll tell you what it is. We've made the caption disappear in our condition, but once we've made it disappear, we then also need to make sure that it's collapsed. The whole thing is collapsed, its space is no longer used. So if we tick that and then give that a go. Okay, yeah, there we go, beautiful. Okay, looking good. Right, okay, maybe these slightly off center to those, I think. Let's see what we've got. So the G row. Yeah, let's give that a go. Yeah, there we go, that's better in it. Just needed to, I just needed to container alignment to the center because it's a row container. Okay, good stuff. So let's have a quick look now to finish off. Well, what we'll do, we'll first of all change this icon here, because at the moment we've just got a static icon. So we're going to need to change it, add a condition. So I wonder if I can still paste that paste expression in. Almost. Let's just get rid of these other things. Okay, and then we can say that the name has to be something different. So let's have a look in here, this one on the conditional, and we can say, yes, we've got this one here, so we can just hopefully just copy that, copy. We've also, is it when it's hovered, we want it in white like the rest. That makes sense. So let's do that then. So let's just paste that in. And then we'll put another condition that when this iconify is hovered, that its colour becomes white, which is exactly as the other options are in the other one. Okay, so let's give that a go. Yeah, it becomes white. Yeah, changes icon depending on where you are. We're almost there, aren't we? We just need to have a look at transitioning these to make it look good. So the way that you do what transitions is, if you haven't worked with them before, when you change a width or some other condition about an element, is that you can make it transition over let's say a slide in or a slide out, or a transition, a fade effect over a certain number of milliseconds. It just gives it a little bit of an effect of sliding in and out. So let's have a look at this one. Let's have a look at the logo. So it's under the appearance tab. It used to be, before the new responsive end, it used to be along a separate tab along here, and now it's under the scroll right down. Okay, and we've got a width transition, okay, which means that we've got a 170 ease in, 170 millisecond ease in. So let's have a look at that one. So under appearance, have we got the right one? No, we need to select that. Scroll it right down. Okay, and we can then say width. So you pick the element that when it changes what you want the transition to be. So in this case it's the width, because if you imagine when we change that in, the width is gonna automatically change. So what we can do there is to say, what did we say, 180 was it? And we said ease, you get a few ease in and out. I think it was 180. It was 170. Okay, and let me check something. Yeah, because we're going to change the width. You see, on the it's 141 as standard, and then on the condition we're going to change it to 32. So once the width adjusts, then the transition kicks in. So let's just select that. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, do that. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, it's exactly the same as the other one, so I like that. Right, so we'll do the same on the button here as well. So what we can do, again, it will be based on the width, because we're adjusting the width, not necessarily the height. I think we are adjusting the height, but mainly the width. So we just want something that's going to give it that effect. So let's click on the button, and in this one we're just doing 100 milliseconds ease based on the width again. So let's do that. So on the button, under appearance, define a transition. So it's going to be width, and we're just going to set it to 100. Was it ease in? Let me have a look. Just ease. Okay, so we're just leaving that as it is. Okay, give that a go. Okay. Yeah, there's an effect on there, isn't there? I'll tell you what, just let's make it say 170 like the other one. Okay. You can play around with this forever and a day, you know, and not get anything else done. So there's a limit to what you can do. Yeah, it looks beautiful, I think. Personally, I really like that. And obviously you've got the hover effect, everything's still good. Everything's still the same. That's cool. And a lot of this is new in Bubble, by the way. You couldn't do a lot of what I'm doing here in the old before they introduced the new responsive engine. You couldn't do a lot of that, so that's fantastic. We can do lots of things with this now. For example, if we detect that the page has shrunk to a certain size, then what we can do is automatically shift it across from the extended version automatically to the shrunk version, so that you get much more space across the rest of the page. But that's something for another time. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll join me in part 6. In the meantime, take it easy.